guys, welcome back to my channel. So Let's Resin recently sent me no, scratch that. Let's Resin recently sent me their gallon epoxy resin kit, and in this kit you get a bunch of resin dyes, you get some of those plastic cups. Now this kit also includes the pumps that help with measuring and just keep it mess free and all that good stuff, because God knows resin is a sticky mess. You also get some of the little it's not glitter, it's like the iridescent, like kind of filmy pieces. I don't know what they're called. You get a half a gallon of resin, a half a gallon of hardener. You get 6 of their brand mica powders, a bunch of plastic gloves, and like plastic mats, not really matte, but like a cover over dealy. You get stir sticks, you get a small 50-gram bottle of their ocean white, you get the small mixing cups, you get very, very super detailed instructions. Just all kinds of stuff come in this kit, and it's a really great price too. And I am very, very thankful to Let's Resin for sending me this. Oh, also this silicone tool. This thing is so, so cool. Like, I've never seen it before, but I am already in love with it. It's got like a pointy end and then a little tiny little spatula type scraper thing on the one side. It's super cool. Anyway, so you get all kinds of stuff in this kit. Now, the colors that they have in the mica powders that you get a watermelon red, you get green. I don't have the colors in front of me, so I'm just kind of going off of it. You get blues and purples and gold and black and all of that fun stuff. And it's just, you get a lot of stuff in this kit, like a lot of stuff. Some of my favorite things are the ocean white, which I have already used because I got some in their beginner epoxy resin kit that they have, and I am absolutely loving it. And I like the plastic cups. Like, I use them all the time. So I'm super, super excited about that. And I'm super excited about the pumps. So that's the resin we're going to be using today. Now, what I want to do is I want to go kind of ocean theme. Now, I'm not talking beach theme, I'm talking ocean theme. And I have already mixed up some of the Let's Resin epoxy resin in my cup, and now I'm just adding some blue mica. Now, this blue is not the blue that you get in the kit. It is just an unbranded blue that I got from, honestly, God knows where, but it was kind of the shade of blue that I was going for, so that's what I'm going with today. And I just want to do a very, very thin layer in this because this is going to be my background. And then we're going to do some cool stuff with the fishnet that I got, and the anchor, and the sand dollars, and starfish, and all that kind of cool stuff. So I just poured my resin into the mold, and now I'm just going over it with the heat gun, and just to kind of pop any bubbles and kind of get the resin to just move a little bit more fluidly, getting out some crap that fell in it. And then we're gonna just spread it all the way around the edges and go along the 90-degree angles there, just to make sure that no bubbles are kind of trapped down there. And then we're going to let this cure. Now, as this cures, we're going to go on to kind of the next step so that we're not waiting around. All right, and now I'm finally going to get to go around those edges with that silicone tool. And then we're going to hit it with the heat gun one more time just to make sure we pop any bubbles. Set this off to the side and let it do its thing. As we kind of wait for this, we're going to start working on the sand dollar, starfish, and anchor. So what I want to do is, they're just kind of plain blah white, and I don't want it plain. So I decided that what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of my iridescent white glitter and a little bit of my gloss varnish and kind of mix it up. And with my silicone tool, I'm just kind of going to spread it over the top of these. It's going to do two things. One, it's going to put a little bit of glitter on it. Like, I don't need a lot. I don't need it covered wall to wall glitter. That's not what I want. But I do want some kind of sparkle and shine on these pieces just to kind of bring them out. So it's going to do that, and then it's going to shine these babies up because of the gloss varnish. So it kind of works both ways for me. So for the sand dollar and the starfish, all I'm going to use is white. Now, I want this piece to predominantly be blue and white. That being said, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to have other colors in here, but I want those to be my main kind of colors for this piece. So that's why for the starfish and the sand dollar, we're just going strictly the kind of iridescent white glitter. Now I am going to go over the anchor with the white, but then I'm going to add a little more to it. Now, this anchor is very textured, so it has like bumps and grooves and, all kinds of valleys and peaks in this. So I'm kind of going to use that to my advantage. So first off, we're just going over the whole thing with the iridescent white glitter. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to take, after I'm done kind of just getting this all over the place, I'm going to take a tiny bit of this really pretty blue glitter that I have, and I'm going to go over just that top little crossbar of the anchor with that color. And just kind of keep it to the peaks on this. So the iridescent white is kind of going all over the place, okay? The colors that I'm going to use are just going to be on my peaks. And it's just going to be a touch. I needed to touch up a piece right there. But I'm not going to like try and make it full color or anything like that. Just for a tiniest bit, a hint of color is all I'm going for. Just going to brush it on real quick. That's it. Now, I am going to, for the rest of the anchor, I'm going to go silver. Now, why I chose to do two different colors in my brain, that cross section was something else and it wasn't like actually part of the anchor. I don't know why, but I did silver, because metal, and I didn't necessarily think about the cross section as metal as well, so I did blue, but it's fine. It's fine. You guys wouldn't even know if that was the reason if I didn't just tell you right now. But anyway, back to what we got going on. So, again, just honestly, the tiniest bit of silver. Like, I don't want a lot. I don't want it overpowering. So, I'm just kind of going on and brushing it over top of those areas real lightly. That's it. Then we're going to let this dry for a bit. Now, I will tell you, if you've not worked with the gloss varnish before and glitter, if you make the mistake that I make all the time, you would think I would know these things, but I don't think about them in the moment. I don't know if it's because I feel like, oh, I'll be neat this time and I won't make a mess. Yeah, right. I always make a mess, and I always end up with it stuck to my fingers. This stuff will glue glitter to your fingers like nobody's business. Like, and it it is so much a pain in the ass to get it off. Like, you don't even know. I swear to God, it like glues it in to like where your fingerprints are, and it feels like you get glitter just stuck everywhere, and you literally have to go in with your nail and like scrape it off, or if you're trying to wash your hands like with an actual like scrub brush to try and get it off, and even then you're lucky if it comes off. It's terrible. But anyway, back to the job at hand. Here we are 24 hours later. This base piece is nice and cured. Now it's time to fight with this fishnet and kind of get it placed how I think it looks good. And I don't need a lot, and I don't want it clumped up. I want it kind of spread out pretty wide, but I don't want it to encompass the whole piece. I only want it like about halfway ish, right? So I'm just kind of figuring out how I want it, and then I'm going to start placing my pieces on here so I can kind of get a feel for what the setup is going to be and how it's going to look, so I know where to cut this fishnet off at. And now it's just a matter of trying to figure out the positions of the starfish and the sand dollar. And then we're just going to kind of go with it and resin it in. So I decided that this is the side I like it on. I'm good with how much fishnet I've got here. So we're just going to kind of cut it off there and stick it in. Get it as close to the edge as possible so that it looks like it's like going outside of it. I don't want it to look like it abruptly ends, right? I just want it to look like it's going a continuation. If I were to look and that piece went on, so would my fishnet. So that's kind of like the process of what my brain is thinking right now. Pretty happy with the setup. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to take my resin and I am just going to start kind of pouring it in these areas. Now, I do not want my pieces covered. Obviously, the fishnet is going to get covered. That's fine, okay? I want this to kind of be like we are actually under the water and this is what we're looking at. Like maybe the anchor is not touching the bottom. And you know, hindsight, I probably should have done something a little bit different with the rope that's coming off of the anchor, but you know, hindsight is 2020 and all that crap. But that's kind of what I want it to look like. I want it to look like we're actually in the water and this is what we're seeing. The starfish and the sand dollar are kind of on the bottom and our anchor is either midway in the process of coming down and hitting the ocean floor or it's just stopped because the rope wasn't long enough. You know, something to that effect. It's fine. That's what I'm going for. Moving my resin around. Now I'm gonna hit it with the heat gun to pop any kind of bubbles that may be there. And then we're gonna kind of start fiddling and making sure that our resin is, you know, underneath everything so that we're gonna get a really, really secure kind of bind between the resin and each one of these items. I also don't want any kind of air seeping out as this is curing. I don't want to get any big, huge air bubbles that may come out. So I am going to kind of lift up each one of these pieces, let that resin flow underneath. I realize that I probably should have done this the other way around, but it's fine. It is what it is. I wanted to kind of make sure that I have it where I want it. Now I am just kind of going over the pieces and making sure that that starfish is attached to the sand dollar. And because I have resin on some parts of it and not on all of it, I am going to lightly, with my silicone spatula here, brush over every single piece. Now, typically when you do your gloss varnish and your glitter, like it really doesn't, especially if you're doing it in a thin amounts like I did, you don't really necessarily have to worry about that glitter coming off because that gloss varnish acts like a hella glue and it's not going anywhere. But I do, because I did get some resin on these pieces, I don't want it to be like that crystal beautiful shine you get from resin when something's on it and then not. So I am going to go over every bit of these sides and everything just with a super thin layer. I don't want drips and blobs and none of that. Just so that it all has that same shine and it's very consistent. That's what I'm going for. So now it's just a matter of adding the rest of the resin that I have and we're going to let this set up and do its bit. And then we're going to come back and we're going to add some kind of finishing details that are going to bring this piece to life. Now, I'm already like, I'm really happy with it. It's my vision. I can see it coming to life. But this next step, like, really just, it brings it. It really, truly does. Okay. Now, 24 hours later, that clear resin is done. Now I've got some kind of fake plants, kind of like aquarium plants, I guess. And I'm just going to start chopping these up. And we're going to just have some fun kind of placing them wherever to make it look like we've got some plant life coming out of the bottom of the ocean floor. Now, I realized maybe I should have added a little bit of sand to the bottom, but it's fine. Maybe this part of it just doesn't have sand. Maybe it's just all plants. I don't know, but it'll be okay. So I just cut up some pieces and now we're just going to kind of start placing them. I want this to look like that it is growing like just out of everywhere. You know, when something's been there for a long time, that you get the plants that just kind of, like if it's above ground, you get like moss and stuff like that that just starts growing on stuff. And that's kind of what I want this to be. So, okay, maybe this isn't the anchor in the middle of its way down because I did put some plants looking like they're coming off of the anchor. Whatever, it's fine. But I do kind of want them to really be incorporated with these other pieces to make it look like it's something that has been here for a while. And that's kind of what I'm going with. So it's just a matter of fiddling around long enough, breaking up these pieces, making it look natural, giving it kind of like the waviness that the water would make the plants move, and just kind of having that on there a little bit, I guess. So it did take a little while to kind of get everything just the way that I liked it, and kind of going in and through the starfish legs to add that little bit of extra ness, I guess. And then what we're gonna do is, after I get kind of everything placed where I'm happy with it, I'm just gonna take a little bit of my ISTOYO UV resin, and we're going to use that to kind of tack these pieces down. Now, I will be pouring actual resin on here a little bit, not a lot. Again, these plants are not necessarily going to be completely covered. Some of them maybe, some of them in part, but they will not all be completely covered. This is going to very much be a 3D piece. And that is how I want it. Like, I want it kind of popping out of the piece itself. Like, I don't want it encased in resin. That's not what I'm going for. So what pops out is fine. What's covered is fine. It doesn't matter. All right. So I figured, part of me wanted to add these, part of me was like, eh. I felt like maybe I should add a little bit more color to it, so I'm just gonna add like maybe two pieces of this and call it a day. It's really cool stuff, but it kind of, like, it has this weird, almost foamy stuff to it, and it falls off all over the place, so it makes a mess. But I do like it. All right, so now we're just going to, like I said, go over the bottom of each one of these, push them down up against it as close again to the edge as possible, so that it looks like it's kind of coming up out of it, like it's just a continuation, and we just cut a hole out of something, right? We just cut a circle out, but there is life going on the other sides, if that makes sense. That's kind of what I'm going for here. So pop down some UV resin, hit it with my torch for just a moment, and just to kind of act as a glue to glue it in place and then be done with it. And then we're going to go with our actual epoxy resin, and we are going to seal this stuff in the rest of the way. All right, so that part's finally done. Now it's time to add this last little bit of resin, and I am going to use just the tiniest bit of my Rolio Pearl White, like that super sparkle, just for some shimmer to it all. And we are going to slowly pour this in. Now, I do want to make sure I hit all those areas that I put the UV resin in, and get it kind of sort of in between these plants. I'm trying not to go over the plants themselves because I don't want them completely covered. I do want them popping out, and just kind of gonna add it, not all of it at one time, because I don't want to put too much in, but I do need to make sure that I have enough that is going to cover the entire piece. This way, when it cures, I don't have to worry about it pulling away from the edges or any of that. And I do want to make sure that, it's in underneath the Starfish and all those other places that I have kind of open holes and all of that. And that's pretty much it. Now I'm just kind of working it through, just making sure that it is touching everything and that everything is going to be fully secured down. I don't know why I felt like I needed to put it in that hole, but I just really felt like I needed to. It really, at the end of the day, wouldn't have made a difference, but I felt the need to, so I went with it. And now just going around all of the edges to make sure that it is totally touching everything and wiping up the mess that I made because I kept missing the mold. So, yeah. And then we're just going to hit it with a heat gun. Now, you do need to be careful when you're working with fake plants and a heat gun because it will start to melt them. They will get bendy. And if I would have focused on them too long, they all would have just kind of drooped and fell into the resin. And my 3D piece would no longer be very 3D because it would just be melted plants and resin. So be careful, use caution when you're going around your fake plants and stuff so that you don't heat them too much. It has its place. It comes in handy at certain times because it does help you be able to maneuver them if you need to, but you just want to be careful. All right, so I decided that I wanted to add one more sand dollar to this just to kind of cover all of the places off to the side of the Starfish where those plants were, like the bottoms of it, and to kind of pop it out just a little bit more and add a little bit more dimension to this piece. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the other two pieces and go over with that white iridescent glitter and some gloss varnish. Let this, well, the plan was to let this dry, but at this point, my resin had already cured and I was late to the game as far as getting this part done. So we're gonna work with it wet and get glitter stuck to my hands. So it'll be fun. Okay, demolding this piece, and of course, this is the mold that if you haven't watched my iron on transfer, this is the mold with the huge pimple in it, and it luckily you can't see it through the piece like you could on the other one, but it does have an indentation in the back from that stupid pimple coming up. So, yay me. But it was the biggest mold I had, so I kind of had to use it for this piece. And it's fine. Anyway, because I didn't fill the mold the whole way, I do have some sharp edges, so I am going to go over that with my deburring tool. And a few places I'm going to hit where I couldn't kind of cut with the deburring tool where all the plants were because I didn't want to cut the plants. I will go over with a nail file just real quick and get that done. And then we're going to add the finishing touches to this piece and call it a day. So the first thing that we need to do though is we need to add this last sand dollar, which like I said is not dry. So I am taking off a bunch of the glitter with my fingers and getting it stuck everywhere, but I am going to take some of my E6000 glue and I'm just going to kind of put a bunch of it all over the place and on the actual part of the piece where I want this to stick. Now, because this is kind of up and it's over top of some of these plants, it was a pain to make sure that it actually got stuck on. And yeah, it was fun. I had to hold it for a hot minute to get it to kind of set in place for it to dry. Okay, so that's all dry now. Now, I decided that where I had to kind of go around the edges with the deburring tool, I wasn't liking how it made the resin look, and we're gonna kind of cover that up and kind of give this just a pretty edge. And instead of going over with a paint marker or something that everybody always does, I decided that I was going to use some blue glitter and gloss varnish and just kind of right along the edge, right over top of where I use my deburring tool, I am going to put a glitter kind of edging on it, if you will. Now, I am skipping over the parts with the plants. I'm kind of going in between where you can actually see the resin as opposed to where the plants are because I don't want to cover them. And we're just gonna go along and do the whole thing. As I was doing this and getting near the edge, no, I'm working on the edge. As I was getting near the end of finishing this up, I decided that it would be a good idea to go around the anchor as well. Why? I don't know. I really didn't need to, but I thought it was a good idea, so I went with it. And that's pretty much it on this one. Now, this piece you could definitely use as an actual like wall hanging. All you would need to do is kind of attach the little teeth kind of wall hangers on the back. Unfortunately, at the time of finishing this video, I didn't have any. I am waiting for them to come in. So I couldn't do that. But if you didn't want to hang it on the wall, you could, put it on one of the kind of plate holders or something to that effect, or just kind of sort of stand it up because it does lean pretty nicely. But yeah, that's pretty much it on this one. I think that this turned out super, super cute. You could definitely, if you wanted to, with your Cricut, you could put some words on it or whatever, some kind of beachy theme. Like it would go great in a condo, at a beach house, or anything like that. I think it turned out cool. I really like it. I think my favorite part is the anchor with the plants kind of coming out of it. I really, really like that part a lot. That's probably my favorite. But anyway, that is a wrap on this one, guys. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. I will catch you guys on Thursday at the next one. Love ya.